nearer to Green Street. This is what it looked like when they knocked down everything to build a highway. Yeah, it's not great. There was a big swath of deserted land in the middle of Jamaica Plain. It eventually got taken over by the state. They stopped the highway project, and instead of building the highway, they put the orange line underground. They took it from the elevated underground, and they built a park over it. So we have the Southwest Corridor Park. Okay, we're getting close to the end. I like this picture. Matt and I talked about it earlier today. This shows, this is Forest Hills. We've got a trolley coming down the hill. There's a couple, maybe you can tell this, there are people building in the middle of the street. They're digging holes to put in uprights for the elevated train. In the very back corner, you can see a kind of a pyramidal object. That's a crane that they're putting in an upright stanchion for the elevated train. But we still got the trolleys on the ground level here, in the front.
Is that Forest Hills?
That's Forest Hills. It's hard to tell, but hopefully some of you can see that there's a sign that says Oxford Chocolates on top of one of those shops. That's Dogwood / now Brassica, right there. And then, yeah, in the background there's a big building. That's the old Seaver Mansion. It became, at this point, Emerson Hospital. So this is very early in the 20th century. The elevated came in 1910. They're building the elevated. But you can see in the background, there's those forested hills, right? Semi-forested at this point, but there's one big house and another little house that you can kind of see right on the edge of the frame, and that's it. This neighborhood isn't. And then.
That's what year?
I think about 1908. And then I thought I would just bring up some more recent history, transportation history. This is 2012. This is a picture by Richard Heath, who wrote an amazing history of Forest Hills, which Matt has been sending out in all the communications. It's worth reading. A lot of these pictures are his. I tried to get him to do this, he wouldn't do it. This is the Casey Overpass coming down. So in 2012, they disassembled this massive concrete overpass from the 1950s and reconfigured the Arborway. And this is, the picture we have says 2012. Yeah, 2015? Okay. So they disassembled it and they reconfigured the whole neighborhood. So I think Forest Hills is an interesting place because of all the people that live there, and I could talk for hours about it, but the people that live here are going to do that talking for me. But I'm happy to answer questions at the end. And, yeah.
Sorry.
All right, Neil.
Before you said at the end, I raised my hand.
Yeah, that's fine.
I was curious, I'm sure everybody's passed by this a million times, but the firehouse at the end is one of them.
Yeah.
Right on the corner of West and Walk Hill.
Mm-hmm.
Do you happen to know anything about its history or like when it became condoized?
Sure. Do you know when the condos were built? I think it's the 80s, right?
No.
Yeah. Later? Yeah, I don't actually know the date of when it was condoized, but we can find.
Oh, I think it was before 1980. Yeah.
Before 1980 it was a functional firehouse? Shirley has spoken. We can find out. It's easy enough to find out. We will find out and we'll post it on we'll put it on our, okay. That was it, I think. Hang on. Oh yeah, but I do have tour flyers. The JP Historical Society is an organization to, they're right there. Highlight the rich history of Jamaica Plain. We do that through walking tours. We do it through lots of different talks and lectures. We're going to have one in Forest Hills in November about early women voters in the Minton building. There's a new space in there, so I'm excited about having that there. But sign up for our email list and you'll get all the information. But without further ado, let's bring all our panelists in because that's what we're doing.
And a round of applause for Gretchen. Just close. Thank you.
I'm sorry, I didn't push the chair. All right. Get a drink anyway. Made it easy. Would you like something to drink? Would you like water or something?
Recent person that lives here.
Alternatively, the corner is open if you want to.
What are you doing anyway?
Oh, you good?
Your bed.
Yeah, I would think it's being down the road. Like, do or whatever. Like, you know.
Do me first, because I'm the most recent, and I'm going to be short.
Okay, folks, let's give it up one more time for our panel. We're going to save questions for the end. This is a little bit free form. We have a few topics we want to cover, but everyone's going to share a minute or two right now, just a little bit about who they are, what the neighborhood was like when they moved here, maybe why they moved here. But this is kind of their turn to just say whatever's on their mind. Then Gretchen's going to go through a few topics about perhaps change or highlights, and then at the end we'll do questions and answers. Mike Riley.
So I decided to go first, sorry, because I am the most recent person to move here in 2003. I moved to JP in 1999. A little anecdotal, I was living in the North End with two roommates who were a couple, and in 1995 one of them died and the other one decided to move to JP. And I was like, why are you moving to JP? Your partner died, you're still alive. I mean, people in Boston have no idea what we have here in JP. I mean, I had no idea until I moved here in 1999. But it's a great town, great community, I should say. Matt just told me today that I was on the panel, so I'm really surprised. No, he really did. We planned this, we organized it, but he told me who was on the panel, and then today we're standing there and he's like, had this chair with my name on it, so I was like, well, I'm really much too recent to be on the panel. But things I love about let's say Wenham Street, our neighborhood, is that there were a lot of beautiful old houses, and I was very sad to see them be torn down and multi-family things put in. So that sounds like you're anti-housing, but if you say you love the new building come in, you sound like you're pro-gentrification. So I'm somewhere in between. I miss the old houses. I'm glad the neighborhood has more people in it than we did before. I miss the old neighbors we used to have. The people that lived in Matt's house were friends of mine for 6 to 7 years, but they're not here. Matt is a better friend, and he's a great neighbor. Sorry. So now he's telling what I should say. He should get rid
This is like a Trump cabinet meeting.
Anyway, seriously though, and I used to have not the ugliest house in the street, and now I do. And that's a little sad for me, but it's going to stay ugly because there's no use making it pretty now. Anyway, that's all I really have to say, and I would like to give the rest of my time to Steve.
Well, thanks, Mike. My name's Steve Dudley, and I moved to Jamaica Plain in 1975. 50 years ago this year, because the apartment I was living in the Fenway was being sold as condos. So they said buy or move. So I had some friends that lived on Center Street, Beaufort Road on Center Street, this big building by the pond. It was a beautiful apartment, and I stayed there for about 5 years before the owner sold it to a developer and said you can buy or move. And I thought, who would ever buy a condo in Jamaica Plain? Good thing I wasn't a realtor back then. So I drove around different neighborhoods in Jamaica Plain, and in the paper, the real estate company said, you can own for the cost of renting. That sounds good. So I drove down this street and saw a house with a for sale sign in the window, and I called a realtor, and interest rates on mortgages at that time were 19%, and I bought the house for $42,000 in 1981 prices. A 3-decker, and if the inspectional services looked at it before I bought it, they would have condemned it. It was a hellhole. But I learned to develop houses and do construction. I reconstructed it, and I've been there ever since. And the neighborhood has really turned around. When I first moved here, it was really dangerous. No one walked through the Arboretum or right around the Jamaica Pond. It was just too dangerous. Several murders occurred. The only guy that did run was a guy named Bill Rogers, who lived in my basement. This weird guy, drank a lot of beer, ran a lot. And then he started winning Boston marathons and moved to Dover, bought some running shops, and did really well. But he ran out of Jamaica Plain. I'm sorry.
He lived on Buford when we lived on Lakeville.
Oh,
He lived
that's
with you here?
that's where I lived, Bill
Oh, yeah.
Buford. You lived in Lakeville?
We lived on Lakeville. South
Ah,
Lakeville.
same building.
Yeah.
Well, the area, even here when I moved in, was somewhat high in crime. Also, a lot of drug dealing, overdoses. The Washingtonian Hospital had been over by, right behind the courthouse. They had a big methadone detox center there, so the heroin addicts would hang out down at the corner waiting for the methadone clinic to open. But a lot of drug use, a lot of overdoses. And it turns out, I didn't know, but in 1974 to 1980, John Gagan was a priest at St. Andrew's Church up here. And it was he who was one of the first pedophile priests that was convicted, charged and convicted for pedophilia. He had abused hundreds of kids, many of them here in this neighborhood. In fact, I knew one of the families where he had abused a lot of the kids. A good number of them had developed drug and alcohol problems. I knew 3 of them on my street who overdosed. Another was killed by the police during a robbery. And they thought it was related to their abuse by that priest. He was later convicted and died in jail. Let's see, I can find some upbeat things. Master Yang, who was one of the international known masters of Kung Fu, moved his headquarters to the building that is now Acholitos. It's called Yang's Martial Arts Academy in 1986. Wrote books, did training, stayed there until 2005 when he moved to California to set up a 10-day training program. He had offices in 60 countries and publishes and trains all over the world. Let's see, the other thing. It turned out about 10 years ago, a friend of mine did my genealogy and told me that my grandfather to the 8th degree was Thomas Dudley, who founded Cambridge, Harvard, Mass Bay Colony, is now buried in Elliott Graveyard over in Roxbury. He was a Puritan. I don't think he'd approve of my lifestyle. So I'm sure he's rolling in his grave. I have a bunch of other information that I found from doing the history of Jamaica Plain, and if people want to talk to me later, I can share some of that with you. But thank you.
My name is Shirley Hutchins. My maiden name was Brauneis, Brauneis, which is a German name. Hutchins was my husband's. So I have lived in Jamaica Plain, Forest Hills, for 75 years. In the house at 76 Weld Hill, my grandfather built it in the late 1800s, and my father was born in it in 1902. He bought the house from the estate in 1939. So I was probably 18 months old when we moved to that house. So I don't remember living anywhere else. And I've seen a lot of changes here in Forest Hills. Now, growing up down on Hyde Park Avenue, at the corner of Weld Hill, on the left was Benny's, which was a mom and pop store. And they had everything. And they also had a soda fountain, so you could get ice cream there as well. There was also a cleaners there, a First National store. On the other corner of Weld Hill Street was a bakery called Webb's. And then that burned, and later on, the fireside was built. And of course, that closed a few years ago, and now there's condos there. And I don't know where anybody parks anymore. So also on that side, on Hyde Park Avenue, we had a candy store called Dolly's. We had a Chinese laundry. We had a fish market owned by Johnny Hale. We had Donegan's Meat Market. It was on the corner of Woodlawn and Hyde Park Avenue. And then further down, the drugstore was O'Brien Drugstore, and then became Johnny Owens. There was a first national cooperative, Forest Hills Cooperative Bank. It was the Terminal Lunch. There was, there was another laundry cleaners as well. Oh, and across the street, before they tore all the houses down, we had a cobbler, and his name was George, and he lived behind the store. I don't know if he was ever married or he was widowed. And then there were, I think, 2 or 3 triple deckers. And then we had the toll gate. And we used to get over onto Washington Street to go to Roslindale. We used to drive down Melto, take a quick right and take a quick left, cut through the toll gate, come on to Washington Street, and then right underneath the bridge to continue up Washington Street. Let's see what else I can remember. Well, there was a pizza place on Washington Street called Jeffrey's. And I remember my mother and father saying, I don't want you going down there. So of course you know what kids do. They do what they're not supposed to do. So my girlfriend Margaret and I walked over to Jeffrey's, we got a pizza, and we brought it back, and we ate it on her front porch. And she lived at 73 Weld Hill. And I think it's Conrad and Kate Pilson's home, and they still have it, even though they're not living in the area anymore. My house, as I said, was built by my grandfather. There were, on the 3rd floor, we had the 2nd and 3rd floors. On the 3rd floor were 2 bedrooms at the head of the stairs, one at the head and one down on the right, and then on the left. And then on the right-hand side was a spare room that we used for storage. Then the back attic, it had a closet, and then it had a big room that was, it was finished. It had no heat, because back years ago they had the hot air registers. So some of the registers are still in that house. And we used that for storage, as well as my dryer was up there. We never had a dryer growing up. We had one of those old washing machines, the Ringer wash machine. And then we got an ottoman. You never saw a Ringer wash machine? Oh, it was lovely. You know, you have to be careful. You'd have to hit it in a hurry. You'd get socks caught in it. It was going around the rollers to take the water out. Is there anything else that I could probably add to that?
Was it mostly like German or Italian or like the people?
It was mostly Irish. Yeah, Irish Catholics.
You're Irish.
No, German, Finnish, and I'm Episcopalian. So I used to go to church up in Roslindale. My father went to church at, it was the KFC hall, but it was a church, it was the Upper Memorial Methodist Church. So he went there. And then it, later became the Knights of Columbus, and I think it's condos now.
I think it might be still Knights of Columbus. Yeah, it still says Knights. It still
Does it really? Yeah. And of course, I went to the Francis Parkman School for 6 years. And from there, I went to Girls Latin School over in Roxbury for 2 years. I left there and finished my high school I went to high school at the High School of Practical Arts, which was in Roxbury. They closed it when I was going into my junior year, so I ended up at Rosendale High School. And then I spent 2 years at Boston Clerical, also in Roxbury. So I've had quite an education, have made a lot of friends through the years. And I live in Walpole now. I sold the house back in 2014. It was a very easy thing for me to do. The Kriegmans live across the street from me. And I had told Zach that I was going to sell my house, put the house on the market in the middle of June. So that Friday, it was right around Memorial Day, he called me from New Hampshire, and he told me that his father would finance the house for his mother until she could sell her house, and could they please come and see it. And I had already signed a contract with a realtor. So they came, and they went from the 3rd floor to the basement. I handed them the realtor's card. 2 weeks later, I was signing purchase and sale. So, and I didn't move out of there until the end of August. So I moved into New Pond Village in Walpole on a Tuesday, and 3 days later, I was signing, I was passing papers. And Ginny DeLuca was sitting across from me, and she's like dancing in her chair. She was so excited, because I had a bag full of keys to tell her what was what, And she was just so excited to have that house. And she still loves